Welcome to the Monadnock Youth Coalition series called Uncomfortable Topics with Teens.
I'm Stella.
And I'm Bailey.
Today we're here with Kristen Landau from UNH 4-H Extension.
Before we get started, we want you to know that we will be taking questions at the end of the episode. Feel free to put your questions in the chat as you think of them, and we will answer them at the end.
Kristen, can you introduce yourself and tell our audience a bit about you, who you are?
Sure. So my name is Kristen Landau, and I'm from UNH Cooperative Extension, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. I have my master's from UNH in family science with a specialization in adolescent development. It was a little bit over 10 years ago that I went back to school because I found that my favorite part of my job was working with youth members to help them find their voice and support them, whether that be with their peers, their teachers, or their parents. So now I work for 4-H and Extension, and I'm able to work with teens from all over the state, providing opportunities to help them discover who they want to be.
Thanks for being here, Kristen. Our question for you today is, can you explain to our youth watching what teen mental health first aid is and why it is important?
Yeah, absolutely. So Teen Mental Health First Aid is a program from the National Council for Behavioral Health, and it's geared specifically for teens that are aged 10 to 12th grade. It's pretty new, and it was created because we know that 1 in 5 teens face a mental health challenge before they turn 18 years old. So at this point in their lives, teens are more likely to reach out to their peers and notice if something is wrong with a friend or something is a little bit different. So just like how a lot of teens take CPR and first aid before their first job as a camp counselor or a babysitter, this was a course that was created for teens to be more familiar with what a mental health challenge is and how they can help.
Awesome. And can you talk more about the stigma of mental health?
Yeah, so stigma means that there's something negative associated with a word. So in mental health, there are still a lot of people that have a perception that if you have a mental health challenge or there's a moment in time where you might have been in crisis, that there's something wrong with that person, and that is so incorrect. We need teens like you to help kind of set us straight in that there's no shame in having a mental health challenge, and that you can ask for help, and someone is going to help you. If someone breaks their arm, no one just sits around and says no problem, you'll figure it out and you'll feel better in a few days. That is the same exact thing as having a mental health challenge. Someone notices that something is wrong and you get some help and you get to continue to move on and become more healthy.
What is the difference between mental health and a mental health challenge?
Thank you for asking that. So when we talk about mental health, there's a range from being healthy and living your lives, even though there's probably some bumps and bruises, to a person being unable to cope with their day-to-day life, and they'll need a little bit of support to overcome that. So you can have a bad day and be quiet, sad, mad, and you can feel like that all day long, but still have good mental health. But if you or a friend feels sad or hopeless for days and days, and it's harder to kind of see your way out of that, then you need someone to check in, and you might be going through a mental health challenge. And I've worked with a lot of youth and a lot of teens in my life, and the coolest thing that I have seen is how resilient a person can be. And so even if they're going through a mental health challenge, they can overcome that and continue and become more of that healthy range with their bumps and bruises.
Awesome. And is there anything that we can do if we see a repetitive cycle in us or a friend?
Yeah, there is. So if you see that a friend is not themselves and they're super quiet, even though usually at lunch, they won't stop talking, or they've gone totally dark on social media, the first thing probably that you would want to do is reach out. I know a lot of the time, sometimes we shoot a text message or we do something on social media, but if you are worried about a friend, then I would suggest to reach out in person if you can, because then they can see your face, they can hear your tone of voice, and you just ask, like, are you okay? Like, I haven't heard from you in a few days, or I miss having you at lunch. Like, I haven't seen you. Where have you been? Like, is there something that you want to talk about? And these questions, you just ask them in a really caring way. Like, you hear your voice saying it, and you tell them that you do notice and that your friend is seen. So, as a teen mental health first aider, we would spend a lot of time really getting to know the different ways that you would reach out. And a friend could be anyone around you. But as I'm talking to both of you today, we're just talking about you listening, like you asking the question and you listening to a friend, and just really kind of sharing that you've noticed that they're behaving a little bit differently than usual.
If we need to bring an adult into the situation, what do we do?
So that's it's a big question, and it doesn't have a really easy or simple answer, because there are really two situations here. One is where a friend could really use some support and they want it. So you give them space, you're checking in, you're kind of talking about it, and then you can offer to help them share with a trusted adult kind of what's going on with them. The other scenario is if your friend is in crisis. And in teen mental health first aid, we would really go over this in detail about the different kind of crisis situations. But if you know that there's a crisis and someone might get hurt, you call 911. Or if you know your friend is being hurt, you tell an adult immediately. It is important, and I want to say this and have everyone listening hear me, that in New Hampshire, all adults are mandated reporters. So if you are going to go to an adult and you are telling them something that your friend or yourself is being hurt in some way, they cannot keep it to themselves. They have to tell the Department of Health and Human Services so that they can get help for you or for your friend.
What happens when you go and talk to an adult? How would like a conversation look?
Yeah. I think a lot of the times, or a lot of the teens that I speak with, their first thing that when we're talking about this is that they're worried that they might get in trouble if they go to an adult. And what a scary thing to have this huge thing that you have to share, and like you're trying to help a friend or yourself, but you don't want someone to be in trouble. I think when you go to an adult, the important thing to remember is to believe in yourself and believe that your friends has a need, and it needs to be met. So if you feel like you need to go to an adult, you really probably do. So you would take a moment to think, who is someone that you trust? Who is approachable? Who has made space for you in the past and has responded without judgment? So those are the kinds of adults that you would go to, and kind of just share what's going on. And I always say, like, sometimes it's harder to do it in person. So if you can go to an adult with a friend or write a letter, find a way to share what's going on, but with that person that you trust.
Have you ever encountered this in real life?
Yes. So in my story, this happened to me when I was a teenager, and at first it was a terrible memory, but it turned into a good one. So when I was in 10th grade, I had a friend, my best friend, and she was harming herself. And it was a really scary thing to be witnessing, because I was the only person that knew. And so I kind of took it upon myself to be the person that would come in every day at school, and this is going to be really heavy and I'm sorry. So like I would count to see how many more scratches and different ways that she hurt herself, I would count to like make sure, is it the same? Is it more? And I was the only person that she would talk to. And there came a point where it was so much. I was so afraid for her that I did tell her, like, I really think like we need some help. We need to tell somebody. And we did. She agreed, and we told our biology teacher, who we loved. But the part about being the mandated reporter is we told her all of these things, and she did not tell us that she would have to tell someone. So within that conversation, and my friend feeling better because she thought maybe she would get some help, a lot of things happened that were completely out of our control. She got the help she needed, and she is really great now. But because of that, she stopped talking to me, and that was in 10th grade. And then, like 20 years later, we were at a wedding of a mutual friend, and she was so happy to see me, and I was so happy to see her. And she was so healthy and loving her life that it was a really wonderful thing to see that she was okay. Though, of course, really awful, and it hurt a lot that she had decided to not talk to me anymore after that.
And then when you do go to a trusted adult, what should their reaction look like?
So, great question. And I won't even take my personal story into this again, because the reaction was exactly what it should have been, in that they listened and they understood. And those are two of the things that you really should see. But adults don't always respond the way that they should. And although I'm an adult, I'm sure there are times where I haven't responded in a beautiful way. But with something like this, when someone goes to an adult, they should respond with care and empathy. You know that you're telling the right adult when they listen, when they believe you, and when they come up with a plan on how to start to make things a little bit better. If an adult responds and they're frustrated, or they minimize what you're saying, or they're not hearing you, please try another adult, because there is someone out there that is going to be able to hear you and help. And just keep trying until you or your friend gets the help that they need.
Thanks, Kristen.
Now we are going to check the chat for questions from our audience.
Can she see any? Are you able to see the chat?
I see you guys looking. Are you fielding millions of questions from the chat?
I can't open the chat. I thought I put in the password for the Wi-Fi, but it's not working.
Okay, just go.
Okay. That brings us to the end of today's live.
We want to give a big thank you to our guest, Kristen Landau, for spreading knowledge to our audience.
Remember that we are always looking for more questions for experts to ask experts.
We have a link in our bio where you can submit an anonymous question that we will answer in one of our lives.
Remember to tune in next week, where we will talk to Dimitri Kirby again.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.